Hi guys, and welcome to the second video in this series. My name is Tom Dollimore and I'm the #1 ranked manager on the FPL Research and FPL Form live rankings. This week I'm joining you from a temporary setup as I'm on holiday with a family. We'll be back to normal next week, so just bear with me. Jumping straight into what I ended up doing with my team at the start of the season. I started off with Sanchez and Dubravka in goal, Murillo, Pedro Porro, Anderson, Esteve and Romero in defence in the end. In midfield I had Salah, Palmer, Bruno Fernandes, Wirtz and Reindeers. Up front I had Strand Larsen, Mateta and Gw2. Now there's some slight changes there from my original video that I did ahead of the season. So in midfield I ended up with Wirtz. That was actually one of my options that I had in there, but I just felt that it was a close call in the end, but I suppose ownership slightly pulled me in. I don't like to take too many risks at the start of the season, so part of it was also the combination of the players up front. But yeah, ended up going with a team with Wirtz in. Also went a bit cold on Anderson. In the models I reduced his minutes down a little bit with Forest playing in Europe, so I ended up going with Reindeers. He was always sort of an option, but I kind of, looking at his minutes, I had his minutes quite low, so I thought there was a bit of an upside there with Reindeers if I did go with him, and obviously that ended up paying off in the first week. Up front I ended up going with Strand Larsen, Mateta and Gw2. A lot of this revolves around the fact that Mateta, I had a look at his penalty share in the models, and I kind of, he was always on the edge, but I ended up putting him in there. Firstly I went Solanke, I said would definitely be in if I felt that he was going to play or start the first game. I think I didn't feel confident of that. I think that was obviously a good decision as well. But Mateta was an option to replace him, and he actually ended up becoming a potential option that may have even replaced him if I did feel he was going to start, because Solanke was going to start, because if I had a feeling that if Eze left, Mateta's penalty share would go up, which would make him really good at 7.5. So yeah, Mateta, Strand Larsen, no Solanke. Ended up switching Anderson for Reindeers, and obviously Wirtz in there. The Romero came in for Nico Williams. Very last minute, there was some stuff going around on Twitter about Rico Lewis potentially joining Forest, so made a little adjustment in the models there for Nico Lewis's minutes, and that kind of it was always very close between Nico Williams and Romero, and yeah, ended up going with Romero on that one, which obviously paid off as well. So some good 50-50 decisions in the first week. End up on 58 points, fairly solid start, and all of the returns come from the double Spurs defence. Obviously Reindeers, Salah captain, Sanchez. That's pretty much where all the returns come from. Everyone else blanked. In terms of this game week, in goal I'm going to be starting Dubravka. In defence I'm going to be having Murillo, Anderson, Esteve, and midfield is going to be Salah, Palmer, Bruno Fernandes, Wirtz and Reindeers. Up front is going to be Strand Larsen and Mateta. So yeah, I'm benching the Spurs defenders against City, and I'm going for the Burnley defence and goalkeeper against Sunderland. It's all, with these decisions I always go with the models unless it's very close on the models, and then in that case I'll do what most other people do and consider all the factors. A bit of gut, maybe a bit of ownership consideration, but yeah, the models have the Burnley defenders quite clear against the Spurs defenders, so that's what I'll be doing. Obviously Gw2 is always going to be benched unless he starts getting good minutes. For my captain it's going to be Salah. I think just keep it simple, stick with Salah at the minute. If I had Haaland it would be Haaland, but I obviously don't have Haaland, so yeah, sticking with Salah. I think Palmer has an outside chance. but probably going to stick with Salah. Palmer vice captain. In terms of what I'm thinking at this point in the season, I think that it's pretty much roll for me. I think since the ability to roll the 5 transfers started last season, I think rolling transfers is pretty much happening a lot of the time that I've got less than 3. Unless there's any disasters, you're pretty much going to want to build up your transfers, because 2 transfers is better than 1, 3 is better than 2 in terms of using them at the same time, because you're able to, rather than just switch one player for a player that is priced the same or less, you can then switch 2 players and do different combinations of price points at in different positions. If you do 3, you can then it has even more power, because you can change 3 different players into 3 completely different price points all at once. So I think there's a lot of power in having 3 transfers plus. So the way that I tend to play now, or I did play last season, was pretty much roll to 3 transfers, and I always floated around the 3 or 4 transfer mark, and that way I'm always consistently able to make a transfer to stay at that point. So you build up to that point, and then when there is a disaster, or if there's a big fixture swing to attack, you can then use the 3 or 4 and quickly switch. There were times last season when I rolled up to 5 and then made a couple of transfers, but I was always floating around the 3 mark. Definitely at the start of the season, I mean, I could easily look at my team and say, oh dear, I've got Wirtz, he wasn't that great, came off in the 81st minute. I really need to change him. There's some other potential players out there that I could switch him to. Or I could look at, say, Eze's joined Arsenal, and I could quickly switch to him and get an advantage. I'm not even going to consider Eze until I see minutes and let that play out and see how he fits into that team. But yeah, you could take the first game week and look at the results, and you could knee-jerk reaction. Ultimately, I'm always going to aim to roll in the first game week. It's like I said last week, I built a team without the plan of making any transfers. The first week's gone quite well. There's always going to be players that you might want to change, and you start feeling the urge to change. And this is partly why there's another advantage of using models is while you're in the middle of the games in the game week, you can start feeling these types of feelings and start thinking, oh, I'm fed up with this player, he needs to go. But as soon as you start looking at the models and the data, it rationalises your thinking, and you can actually take a step back and say, okay, what are the numbers saying, what are the models saying, and it can sort of reset your mind after a tough game week. So in terms of this game week, what the team that I'm going to, obviously I'm rolling my transfer as of now. I can't see myself, unless there's any news Friday that one of my players is going to be out, or one of my major players, but I'm always going to look to roll as much as I can in the first game week. So going to be starting Dubravka. I'm going for the Burnley defenders at home against Sunderland. It's happening. Starting Murillo, Anderson, Esteve in defence. I'm going to be starting Salah, Palmer, Bruno Fernandes, Wirtz and Reinders, and I'm going to be starting Strand Larsen and Mateta with Romero, Pedro Porro, Sanchez and Gw2 on the bench. But yeah, definitely looking at rolling. In terms of chips, there's some potential options. I'm not really thinking about it at the minute. There's a couple of ways you could do it. You can look at if I don't use the early wild card, I can look to use the bench boost and maybe some other chips around when we get the free transfers for AFCON. So you could either, if I use the wild card, I could build a bench boost team just before the AFCON free transfers come in, where you get topped up to 5 transfers. I could plan and build a bench boost team and then use those transfers to fix the team for the long term. Or I could, if I don't need to use an early wild card in a few weeks, I could use the wild card as well in that, and I could wild card into a bench boost team and then use the 5 transfers out, or I could build a bench boost team wildcard out. There's a few options, but to be honest, at the moment, that's as far as my thinking's gone. I know those options. I'm going to go through the first few weeks to get a feel for the landscape of the game and how the players fall. Might see a bit of a template to start forming. Make sure I'm ahead of the curve with that, and then I can start thinking about what I'm going to do in my chips. So at the moment, that's as far as my thinking goes with chips. That's my team for this week, and that's all from me this week. Catch you in the next video. Let's just do another ending. That's it from me this week. I'll catch you in the next video. Right, that'll do.